And he always told the mixing guy, please, I need more vocals on my monitor. I need more guitar on my monitors. And the guy just didn't the way he wants it to do it. And then he'd make an announcement to the audience. He said, how are you? How do you feel today? And the audience was going like, yeah, we love it. We like it. Of course. They were, And Schmier said, yeah, but I don't like it because this bastard behind the mixing desk, he's destroying my evening. And the guy behind the mixing desk, he stand up and walked away. And then we were watching the show and he said to us, hey, Disaster guys, what about you doing my monitor sound? And I took over the place behind the mixing desk and I just put everything on 10,
Yeah.
And he was satisfied by the sound. He was showing us the pump, He was doing like, wow, that's great sound now. Let's go.
Greetings, Legion. Welcome to episode 287 of Into the Necrosphere. Making his very first ever appearance on the show this week, Infernal, the guitarist for the legendary German blackened thrash band Desaster. Their brand new album, Kill All Idols, is out now on Metal Blade Records. What a pleasure catching up with Infernal. We spoke about the band's history. He told me a couple of stories from the old days. We also spoke about the new album and about their upcoming performance at Metal Threat. That is going to be coming your way in just a few short moments. But before we get to that, I have me a hankering for some Unsanctioned Filth. The Unsanctioned Filth comes our way this week courtesy of the mean streets of North Carolina. Black Sanctum is a black metal project that has put out 2 EPs this year so far, just put out a brand new single. So for your listening pleasure, this is Black Sanctum with Putrescent Haze. Black Sanctum kicking off proceedings on this week's edition of Into the Necrosphere. That was their brand new single, Putrescent Haze, available right now on Bandcamp. Head over to their Bandcamp, link as always in the description to the podcast. Check out those previous 2 EPs, and of course, if you buy yourself anything, then do let the gang know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere who sent you. A reminder as well, if you are in an unsigned band yourself and you just poured your last penny into your best ever recording, hit me up on intothenecrosphere@gmail.com, and if I like what I hear, I will feature it on the show. I've got a couple of fucking cool independent bands lined up for the next few weeks that I'm super excited to share with all of you. But as always, I'm always keen to hear more. A quick reminder as well that I am a fully blooded member of the Cosa Nostra of podcasting, a group of men who call ourselves the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse, dubbed so because we are dedicated to destroying mediocrity wherever we find it. We kick off your podcasting week with a fresh serving of Horrorwolf 666, brought to you by the inimitable Brandon Legion. On a Tuesday, yours truly casts hexes and slays poses right here on Into the Necrosphere. A couple of quick Into the Necrosphere related announcements. Number one, my guest next week is very much a wishlist guest. Nick Holmes from Paradise Lost will be joining me for an hours-long conversation that I recorded a couple of days ago. So fucking excited to share that with you. As you know, Paradise Lost happens to be one of my favorite bands. So to get him on the show, that is something that you told me on episode 1 of Into the Necrosphere that I would actually manage to do that at some point. I would have been doing fucking double cartwheels down the street with joy. Another thing to remind you of, if you haven't seen it yet on YouTube, I mentioned way back when I did the Beyond the Gates review that I had done a panel with Denise Dorner and with Schmear from Destruction about the new Destruction documentary, The Art of Destruction. I have now posted that video on YouTube, so if you haven't watched it yet, give it a gander. The sound on my and Schmear's voice isn't all that great, but I did do my best to try and fix it. Either way, you can hear Denise, and that's what's most important, so check out that video. Moving on with the Horseman schedule, on a Wednesday, we've got the first double shot of your week. Everything Went Black comes your way, hosted by none other than Mike Hill from the band Tombs. We also have Iblis Manifestations, and that comes courtesy of Cheyenne, my brother from another mother, the Middle Eastern Marauder, and the frontman for the awesome band Drivax. On a Thursday, your second double shot, we got Necromaniacs, and for that we get the return of Mike Hill. We also have him flanked by either one of the Outlaw Mike Scandado or the Professor Jeff Kashid. They review new and old horror movies, one of my very favorite podcasts of the week and one I never miss. We also have on a Thursday and again on a Sunday, the Sinister Minister, the Reverend Carl Hikara, giving you a curated tour through the dark, the weird, the arcane, and the esoteric with his podcast, Soul Knox. Speaking of curated tours, I take you on one through the latest metal news headlines straight after my conversation with Infernal from Desaster. The Weekly News Rant this week will have me listening to new songs by Hooded Menace. Who else did I check out? Mystic Circle. I answered a bunch of your questions. I've got a few that I didn't get to this week that I will get to next week. So if you don't get your question answered, it's not an insult. I've got it saved. I will answer it next week. And the reason for that is we got cut short on time for 2 reasons. I also spoke about the drama surrounding Cradle of Filth, but more importantly than that, I dished out a swirly of the week so brutal and so merciless that I don't personally think, I'm almost at this point thinking of retiring the swirly of the week. That is how fucking harsh this week's issuance was. So you're going to have to wait till after my conversation with Infernal to hear that. Right now, though, I want you to sit back, boil up that metallized blood of yours as I welcome to Into the Necrosphere for the very first time, hopefully not the last time, Markus Kuschke, a.k.a. Infernal from the band Desaster. All right, well, welcome to Into the Necrosphere, my man. And like I said to you before we hit record, I think Towards Oblivion is easily one of the best singles I've heard all year. I haven't heard the whole record yet. I actually do have the promo, but I've been in Bergen, so I've not had a chance to listen to it yet. But if it's anything like Towards Oblivion and Throne of Ecstasy, I cannot fucking wait to hear it.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad to hear that. The response so far is that amazing. Yesterday, a guy from Armenia wrote to me and said, wow, that's so fucking great. I love this song. And I was thinking about where the fuck is Armenia? So that's really cool. That's really cool. So we are so proud about this new record, about the new album. We put so much effort into it. So we are very glad that people seem to like the first singles. And I guess they will like the whole album.
I definitely feel like there's a bit of a resurgence of interest in Disaster. Not that I think not that you guys kind of ever completely went away, but for some reason with the release of this record, there seems to be more interest in the band and there seems to be more excitement for this record. Is that something that you're feeling as a member of the band?
I don't recognize that. I don't know. It's for us, it's the same. Like every time, we release an album every 4 or 5 years. And of course, then the interest is there. We have a lot of interviews and the fans, of course, write to us and say they like the new songs. But it has never changed. I think it's going continually since years. And I think also with this new album, we won't get rich rock stars and earn millions of dollars.
What about those Lamborghini keys you were waving around before you started recording?
Yeah. I have to hide them, okay? No, but for us, really, it's same business as usual. No, it's no business for us. It's our life. It's our lifestyle. Heavy metal music is our religion, and we love to celebrate our religion. When we meet at the rehearsal room, there's always like a mass, like a black mass, of course. No, we have a lot of fun meeting each other and play music, create music. That's the best thing, when you are in a band. So cool to put all your feelings, all your emotions, all the stuff you have in your head into the music, into a new song, and that's very cool. And if other guys like you like it, that's cool. That's really satisfying. And thank you for that. Cheers.
Awesome. How excited do you still get about releasing an album, after you've been doing this for 35 years? I mean, this is album 10. So technically speaking, you've been releasing an album on average once every 3.5 years. But on when you put out a record now versus, say 2000 or 98, like how is the experience still the same for you? Do you still feel anxious about how people are going to receive it? Like, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, of course, I will never forget the moment when the first album was out, when I got the first album in my head, and put it on the record player and played my own music on the stereo, that was so fucking great feeling. I will never forget it. And of course, you get used to it a little bit. But you are right. Of course, we are... what can I say? We are very upset when a new album is going to be released, because not because we are wondering how will the people react, will they like it, but we are looking forward to have our own music at home, to put it on the record player, and listen to the music. That's always a great feeling. And honestly, of course, we play the music for ourselves. And if there is some reaction, of course, it's great. And we feel honored by it. We feel proud about it. But at the very end, we have to be satisfied by the music for ourselves, and that's always the case. Otherwise, I think we haven't released it. If we have recorded it and mixed it and mastered it and pressed it, and then it sounds shit, we would say to a record company, don't release it, please. But of course, we are satisfied by it. And it's album number 10. Of course, album number 10 is something very special. It's a jubilee. And we put so many effort on it. It was really hard work in the last 4 years. And I think, we did a good album.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was a fan of Churches Without Saints. I really liked the Oath of an Iron Ritual, but this to me is something really special. Like there's a renewed energy in this, that it's like you guys sound like young men. It doesn't sound like, it doesn't sound like you've been doing this for about as long as I think. Yeah, it doesn't sound like a band that's been doing this for as long as many of their fans have been alive for. Tell me something.
Thank you very much. That's a great compliment. Thank you.
Well, the thing is, it's been an interesting thing for me to observe as I've done this podcast, and this will be probably episode 286 or 287. So I've done quite a few of them, but the thing I've been particularly fascinated by over the last several years of doing it has been looking at musicians that have been doing this for a long time, looking at the veterans, and trying to get an understanding of how those that are still doing it at a very high level, how they manage to maintain that passion and that enthusiasm, and most importantly, that creativity and that spark. And I still don't know if I've got the answer. I mean, I think sometimes I think it's because some of them just listen to a lot of different music, and they use a lot of different. They are still constantly in love with the idea of music and making music. Others just seem to love specifically what they do. I mentioned to you that I spoke to Schmier. I mean, I've met few people that are as in love with Destruction's music as Schmier is.
I think he has a lot of fans who are into Destruction's music as well.
Yeah, and I don't mean that in a conceited way. It's just the passion he has for what he does after so many years.
Yeah. And you can recognize it. We met Schmier often. We played a lot of shows together with Destruction. I have to tell you one story. It was so funny. Schmier sometimes is a little bit cholerical. Is it the right word? Cholerical. He's a cholerica. He's sometimes very upset about things which are not going like he wants to have them. So they played a show, and he always told the mixing guy, please, I need more vocals on my monitor. I need more guitar on my monitors. And the guy just didn't the way he wants it to do it. And then he'd make an announcement to the audience. He said, how are you? How do you feel today? And the audience was going like, yeah, we love it. We like it. Of course. They were, And Schmier said, yeah, but I don't like it because this bastard behind the mixing desk, he's destroying my evening. And the guy behind the mixing desk, he stand up and walked away. And then we were watching the show, and he said to us, hey, Disaster guys, what about you doing my monitor sound? And I took over the place behind the mixing desk, and I just put everything on 10,
Yeah.
And he was satisfied by the sound. He was showing us the thumb, He was doing like, wow, that's great sound now. Let's go. That was a great show.
Did the sound guy ever come back?
No, he disappeared.
He's probably afraid for his life.
Yeah, he was afraid because Schmier is a tall guy, I think, and he really was upset with him. But that was great, and this situation showed again how important the music is for Schmier. Some guys say, he's an arrogant bastard because he's always upset with little things. But of course, you have to be professional on stage. He wants to give everything to the audience. And of course, he needs a good sound to do that. So I understand easily that he was upset.
I often say to people that in my line of work, I've said to people that work for me, the most important currency that you have, and no matter what field you're in, is reputation. I think I think when you invest in your personal reputation, and in how you're perceived to the extent that someone like he has done, it's natural that you're going to be upset when stuff like that happens. Because you don't want to be known as the guy who half-assed the show, or the show sounded like dog shit. I recently saw Paradise Lost at Beyond the Gates, and they had horrible sound issues, but just some of the feedback that you read, people are blaming the band for having for giving a bad show. And putting myself in their shoes, which I've never been in, certainly never been in a band of that size, but if I put myself in their shoes, if they, for example, can't hear themselves on the monitor, or the sound is complete and utter dog shit, and they can tell the audience is feeling it, of course they're going to have a bad show. It's not necessarily their fault, but it's interesting. I think people don't necessarily realize when they call someone like Schmier arrogant. I don't think they realize it's not arrogance. It's how much value, to your point, he places in how the band is perceived and how he as a performer is perceived.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the case. And often the audience don't know that the band always does its best on stage. But if there is a guy doing a bad sound, it's not the band's mistake. And most guys don't recognize it. They don't even know that, because often you don't have your own sound engineer. And even if you have your sound engineer, sometimes the technique is so bad, or the venue is bad. You have a bad sound at the venue. So the band is not responsible for that. But of course, people think that, and they say, oh, Disaster, they were so bad. They were a real disaster. They had a bad sound and they're shit, But we did whatever we could do, And yeah, that's all we can do.
Did he ever talk to you? I would assume he did, about the fact that you guys named your band after one of his songs.
Yeah, of course. The first time we played together, I think it was when they did the reunion. I think in 98, 97, 98, 99, about that time. We played together in East Germany, in Leipzig, and we did a show together. And of course, we took all our Destruction records to have them signed from Schmier and Mike. And they had a new drummer back then. And of course, we talked with him, and he said, I heard that you named your band after our song. And we said, yeah, of course, Schmier. Thank you very much for this fucking great song. It was really in the early days, we were a real disaster. we were so young, we were wild, we were crazy, we were doing shitty things. And started in the morning in the school bus. We're doing stage dive in the school bus and shit like that, with 14, 15, 16 years. You do a lot of stupid things. And then when it came to find a name for our band, the song Total Disaster from Destruction was it fits like the best, for our personalities, for our characters, and of course for our music, which was really not good at the very beginning.
Well, you're not kidding about antics in the school bus as a band, because you were about 15 years old when you started Disaster, correct?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We started in 88, 89. In 89, we had our first concert. And the funny thing about that was we get our instruments, we tried to rehearse, but we had no drummer. Then we found a drummer who said, okay, I play with you. I rehearsed with you. We did our first songs. And I think when we did our first song, we already said, hey, we have to play live. So 3 months later, we booked a venue to play live with only one song. That was so stupid. But, you see how crazy we were in those times.
Yeah. What was German, I would let's say German polite society's response to metal like in those days? Because again, not to continually reference Schmier, but when I spoke with him, one of the things that he pointed out that I thought was quite interesting is, metal has become, as an outsider, you look at Germany, you look at heavy metal, you see Wacken, you see, and you kind of think, man, it's beloved over there. Everyone has always embraced heavy metal. And he was quite clear that was absolutely not the case. You guys were the vagabonds of society. Certainly they were in the mid 80s, around, 88, 89, when you were getting going. What was the general attitude towards heavy metal like in Germany?
Of course, it was better than in the early 80s. Schmier is totally right. In the early 80s, guys with long hair were rockers. They were outsiders. They were outlaws in Germany. And of course, there were not many people into this kind of music. But at the end of the 80s, when we started with the band, a lot of guys were into heavy metal because Metallica started it here with their albums. When the song One came out, they had a video clip for One. It was played everywhere, in every venue, in every discotheque, in discos and stuff like that. There was Metallica One, and also girls started to love heavy metal because of this song. And it was of course better. But on the other hand, it was like, in the past, when I started in 86 with heavy metal, it was still like in the beginning, you were an outlaw. It was something special. But then it seems that every normal guy is suddenly into heavy metal because of Metallica, Mm-hmm. So it became a little bit, why do they now listen to metal? That's my music, And I remember we were sitting at our old singer's house, and we were listening to Metallica, and he was saying, wow, now every fucker is listening to Metallica right now, and that's really shit. And he got the record of Metallica from the record player, opened the window, and threw it out of the window. It was so stupid, of course, but you see, it was kind of like the whole scene changed a little bit. Also, bands like Destruction, Sodom, they started with real evil image, with satanic lyrics and stuff like that. And at the end of the 80s, they tried to change it because it was no longer common. Metallica, of course, didn't have any satanic lyrics. And so the other bands, they saw, they have a lot of success. Let's get rid of this old, shitty, Venom-influenced, satanic kindergarten, And we were, of course, new. We were young, we were wild, and we loved Venom, the Old Destruction, Old Sodom, and bands like that. And we were totally into those satanic shit, And
I was about to say, you were thinking to yourself, I need to bring some of that evil back.
Yeah. That was really like they were betraying heavy metal because they were singing about social items, about criticism of government and stuff like that. We didn't fucking care about shit like that. We just wanted to be hard heavy metal rock stars, when we were kids. And of course, we were great fans of Venom, and we wanted to do it satanic, and that was not longer common. Even the outlook was changing, In the past, everybody was wearing bullet belts, and then it suddenly changed. Nobody was wearing bullet belts anymore, and we were walking around even at school with bullet belts, fucking stupid kids.
I was going to say, what had originally attracted you to that rebel lifestyle? Because you mentioned 1986, so by my calculation, you're about 13 years old when you start getting interested in it. When you were looking at guys like Schmier, the guys in Sodom, what was it about that was attractive to you?
It was something unusual. It was not normal, you know. That was no radio music. That was something very special, and it was hard. It was evil, and I will never forget the first time I saw Venom live on stage, not in person, but on video, on the screen, you know. And that was so amazing to see what they do on stage. You have to remember that was a time without internet. You only had the records. You could only look at the back cover of the record to see how the musicians look like, and to see what they were doing on stage. They were destroying guitars. There was fire. There were explosions. The drum kit was rising, and they destroyed everything at the end. That was so fucking great. I will never forget that. And that was the moment when we said, wow, we have to found a band. We have to do it like Venom.
Mm-hmm. Well, can you remember the song that you first heard by Venom?
Oh, that's a hard question. I can't really remember. I think it was something from a black metal album. Perhaps the title track, I guess.
Because I remember the music video that was doing the rounds when I was younger. Because you're 7 years older than me, so but my senior. But the one that did the rounds when I was a teenager that got me into Venom was Seven Gates of Hell, and I think it was the version that they had recorded at the Hammersmith. I think it's the Hammersmith Odeon. But fucking hell, it was just, it had so much power and so much menace. You know, it's a very simplistic riff, Seven Gates of Hell, but it just works so fucking brilliantly. And I was telling my friend Cheyenne the other day, we were watching King Diamond in Bergen, and I was saying there was something going on with heavy metal riffing between 1984 and 1988-ish. It was so simplistic, but so fucking manly and so full of testosterone. It was just glorious. It was the best time ever. Like if you listen to you hear the riff to Halloween by King Diamond, for example, you know, it's like, it's so simple, but so unbelievably impactful.
Yeah. It was, I think, the attitude. They had another attitude at that time. They were really, you know, the song from Carnivore, that was real male supremacy.
Oh yeah. It's one of the best.
Yes. Of course, the bad side was that there were no girls at the shows. That was really sad in those times.
Did you? Have you? By the way, on that note, just on the note of girls at shows, I would assume, like in the early days, you know, when you were putting out A Touch of Medieval Darkness, Hellfire's Dominion, not many girls. When, out of curiosity, did you see that start to shift? Because I've seen it change. You know, I remember going to shows in the early 2000s, and there were maybe 5 girls there. Now I'd say it's probably maybe a 65-35 split at most shows I've been to. Doesn't matter who the band is.
Yeah, I agree with you. Nowadays, it's good because it's cool to play. And you see some tits in first row banging. It's always great. And of course, it's cool to meet those fans afterwards as well. Have a beer with them, of course.
Yeah.
And when was the change? I don't know. I think it was in the beginning of the 90s when Metallica really got big. Of course, a lot of female fans liked heavy metal, and in our extreme metal scene, I think it was when black metal bands started to use keyboards, to start female vocals. You know, there were a lot of bands who had some female musicians then in their band, which was for us a totally no-go. But on the other hand, it was cool because it brought more women to the shows, and that was a good thing, I think.
It's easy, I think, for people that are a little younger to completely overlook the fact that when Metallica put out that one video, as I was reminded on my friend Cheyenne's podcast the other day, he spoke with Ryan from Blasphemy, and they were discussing this, how angry Metallica, so many Metallica fans were at them, like to a point where the anger over them releasing One and selling out and basically putting out a music video, which they had promised they were never going to do. I think the anger was worse for that than in some ways than it was for what they did with the Black Album.
Well, I remember we were big fans of Metallica. We of course loved the first 3 albums. And when they started with the Justice for All album to release videos, I remember we liked it. We liked it because we could see what they were doing, because we were too young to visit the shows in the 80s, and then we could see them playing live, playing in the videos. It was a cool thing. On the other hand, of course, we were thinking about, wow, that's too commercial. Now everybody is listening to this stuff. And if it's really got worse, of course, with the Black Album, then it was like every mother, every MILF is listening to Metallica, Enter Sandman was played everywhere, really everywhere. No, that was really like, okay, now everybody is listening to my music. What the fucking shit.
Well, I mean, and then in this, you guys are producing demos. Now, one thing I didn't realize until a little while ago, I was reading up some stuff about Disaster. So your 3 demos, the Evil Dead Will Rise Again, The Fog of Avalon, and Lost in the Ages. Alex Meilenwald from the Ruins of Beverast said those are 3 of the most important recordings ever in the German underground scene. Are you aware of that?
No. First of all, I want to correct, because I know in metal archives and there is mentioned the first demo is The Evil Dead Will Rise Again. We recorded this in 89. But it was never released. It was only given to some friends. I think there were some of 20 copies existing, and it was never released. So we couldn't have influenced anybody. But it may be that with our first real demo, The Fog of Avalon in 93, and Lost in the Ages in 94, it might be that we influence one or the other guy in the scene. Yes, it was a great time. We had contact to a lot of guys. I remember I had my pen pal was, for example, Keith of Destroyer 666 when he was still living in Australia. He was still in Bestial Wallers back then. I wrote to Alan from Primordial. We exchanged, we traded demos, we traded stuff. It was a great time. But of course, we didn't realize that we influenced somebody. Nowadays, a lot of people say, okay, yes, you influence us, and of course, other bands also influence Disaster. There's no doubt about it. It's always a giving and a becoming,
Who is out of the bands who've come to you and said that you influenced them? Who has been the biggest surprise to you? Like what band came to you, said, we really dug your music, and you went like, Jesus, like your music, you liked us?
It was really astonishing for me. I remember we played at the Partisan Festival. It's a big festival in East Germany. And we played together with Inquisition. And the guy from Inquisition, he came to me and said, wow, I was very much influenced by your guitar playing. When I play the empty high strings sometimes in songs like Tyrannizer, that influenced him, he said, and I said, wow, I didn't know that, and I felt really honored with that. It was cool to hear that.
Where did that? Because that is quite something that's something about your riff style and your playing style that is quite signature. It's you have there's there's great guitarists, and then there's guitarists that you can instantly, as soon as you hear them play, you can hear it's that person. You know, and outside of metal, Geordie from Killing Joke is one of those people. Obviously, there's Trey from Morbid Angel. You have something. You've got a very distinct touch to the way you play guitar. Where did that come from? What influenced that? Especially that kind of open playing that you were just talking about now.
I have to say that my guitar teacher was Mr. James Hetfield himself, not in person, yeah? But I learned to play the guitar when I just copying when I played the songs from the Kill 'Em All album, you know, and I was so proud when I could play Seek and Destroy, The Four Horsemen, Jump in the Fire, you know, all the songs from the album. I could play every rhythm guitar of every song from Kill 'Em All, and I played it all the time, every day. My friends were always annoyed because they came to me, they wanted to drink beer, and I was just playing Metallica songs, and they were always, please stop it, drink with us. And that's how I learned to play guitar, and I never had a teacher after that, so I never developed that much, you know. I have a very strange technique to play because I never learned to play it like it should be played, I think. And so there is a lot of trial and error in my development, and I developed a lot of strange things, I think, for other ears. But at the end, it sounds good, I hope. So, well,
you know, I was talking about that. That testosterone feel from the you know, mid 80s, but you bring that into some of your riffing. So like instantly a song that comes to mind for me is Metallized Blood, you know, and and that kind of 80s, mid 80s feel that I was referring to there. You get that in the chorus, you know, when you just sort of, you almost just simplify for that split second, like da da da, and then you back into the thrash. But it's in little touches like that I can hear it coming out, and it works so fucking brilliantly. But I mean, as I said, I get why people would point it out and go like, and especially, I mean, Dagon from Inquisition, 100% he would have picked that up from you because it's in his music too.
Yeah, and he said it to me. He said it that it was influenced by me. I'm so proud. Thank you. And this kind of riffs, for example, you mentioned it in Metallized Blood. We call it, you have the cigar in your mouth and you stay on stage and be cool as hell and you play the fuck on your guitar, you know. That's the kind of riffs we like best, you know, and
yeah,
I think that's the testosterone riffs, you know.
Well, I mean, I think that's
it's really over the top.
That song is a testosterone song as well, because like you were saying, you know, there were bands moving away from, you know, the leather and the bullets and the chains and stuff, and then you guys come out with a song that, I mean, really celebrates it, and you know, it's like two fingers up to anybody that disagrees. I love it. I absolutely fucking love it.
Thank you very much, and we are so proud. Recently, a band from Germany, they did a cover version of Metallized Blood. The band is called Knife. Very cool guys. They are around for only 10 years now, and they always play this song live as well. And they asked us if our singer can do one line of the chorus, I think. And he did it, of course. And they were so happy. And of course, they also say, we are influenced by you and stuff like that. And of course, it makes us proud. And that's so cool.
You had a big challenge with members leaving in the early days, and you know, kind of finding a stable band. Firstly, you know, why do you think that was? Like, did you have a different vision to the people that you were playing with? Why was there that instability around Disaster's lineup?
In the very beginning, we had a lot of problems to find a drummer. Of course, it's always a problem because I also wanted to play drums. I wanted to play drums. I asked my mother, can I play drums? Can I have drums? And my mother said, where should we put the drum kit? Are you stupid? There's no place in our apartment to have drums there. And I said, but I want to play heavy metal. I want to play. And she said, okay, then we buy you a guitar. So that was the reason why I came to my guitar. I still love to play drums. A little bit. I try to play. I'm very bad drummer, but it's always cool to do the pounding on the cymbals and on the tom toms. You know, that's so great. I love it. I always I always loved how Abaddon was playing drums. You know, he always said it's sounding like he's falling down the stairs with his drum kit. It was so cool. I loved it. Yeah.
So the as you kind of then found people that you wanted to play with in the long run, in the interim, what was it that kept you going and that kept you motivated and kind of kept you wanting to continue with Desaster when you were exiting members?
Yeah, I think I already mentioned it. The best thing to be in a band is to create your own music, and it's so satisfying. It's so cool. And I always wanted to go on with that, and I never stopped to find to search for a new drummer, and we always found a new one. But of course, it was hard in old times. You know, I think it was the second drummer we had. I had to kick him out of the band because he laid his hands on my girlfriend. That was not good. No. I didn't like that, so he had to leave the band, you know. But of course, we were always looking for new drummers, and we found finally, I think, in Hond, the best drummer ever, and I love his playing. I love him. I love watching him playing. Is like, wow, he has his hands everywhere. He's like an octopus with all the tentacles everywhere, you know, when he's playing drums. So cool. And that vision, of course, we had a vision to keep the music going, to let the music flow. You know, we always wanted to do songs, and that was the reason why we always, also in the beginning, were looking for a drummer. No, it was hard to find, but we managed it in some cases. It was never an option to use drum machines. That shit.
No, definitely not. Tell me something. Your bassist, Odin, he's the second longest serving member of the band. How old were you when you met him?
I knew him before he before he joined the band. He joined the band in 1992. Yes, and I think I knew him 1 or 2 years before already. He was always called the Silent Lord because he never talked to anybody. He's a really calm guy until he starts to drink. No, and it was cool to meet him. I loved his look. You know, he has a kind of pagan style, how he was walking around, and I loved that. And yeah, he was attending our second gig we ever did. It was in 92. The first gig was taking place in 89. I told you already, the disastrous first gig. And the second gig was taking place in 92, and he was one fan in the audience. And our singer back then, he tried to sing and play the bass at the same time, and that doesn't work at all. You know, it was a real disaster. That sounded so bad. He couldn't hardly handle the bass guitar. And we knew that Odin was playing the bass, and after the show, we asked him, hey, what about playing in our band? And he said, I don't have a bass guitar. He said, we thought you are playing bass. Oh, it was just a borrowed bass on the last gig with the band. And we said, okay, buy you a bass and then you join. Come on. And he was forced to join Desaster.
So over the years that you and he have worked together, what has kept the two of you as close as you are? Like what is it about him that makes him such a good partner for you, creatively or otherwise, in Disaster?
Of course, he's a good friend. We all are good friends in the band. It is very important for us. We are not just musicians who meet to start a new project or something like that, to exchange some files via the internet. That's not our way. We are a real gang. We love to meet at the rehearsal place. It's always like a family meeting. It's cool to meet those guys, then there's a certain spirit coming over us. I don't know, because perhaps it's because of the beer or something else. But it's always great. And of course, I know Odin for such a long time, and he always has some cool ideas. When I present my riffs, he always has some cool ideas. He said, yeah, but you have to repeat this part and you have to leave out this part. It sounds too much like this and stuff like that, And it's like when you are married, if you are married for such a long time, it doesn't need much words. You understand each other blindly. That's cool.
Yeah. You mentioned his input into your writing, but I know, you guys do a lot of, you still rehearse together as a band, and do you do a lot of your writing in the band room when you're rehearsing, when you're jamming?
Yeah. For example, the second single, Throne of Ecstasy, it was created in a jam. It was a jam. I just played around some shit on the guitar, and it sounded good, and Hont joined in and played the drums, and already Odin took his bass and played some shit, and Satanic, he just shouted some words which were fitting. And I always record everything we do when we are totally drunk at the end. It's always a mess, but sometimes there's some good sounding vibes on it. And that was a really creative jam, and that was the birth of the song Throne of Ecstasy.
Do you think for a lot of the bands that write, guys are writing by themselves at home, they're sharing sound files and stuff like that, do you think some of the magic is lost a little bit with less bands doing their writing together as a band, like playing together, being in the rehearsal space, throwing ideas around? I personally feel like some of the organic sound from those records that we all love, First Deicide, Blessed of the Sick, all that sort of stuff, I feel like some of that organic feel of those records has gotten lost a little bit because of the fact that people aren't spending enough time together. It's very cool that we can write and record like that now, and there's a lot of albums that have been written and recorded like that I really, really love. But there is something very, very special about the late 80s, early 90s. I think a lot of bands, a lot of people always throw their minds back to, why doesn't music sound like this anymore? I would argue one of the reasons it doesn't sound like this anymore is because not enough people are spending time physically in each other's presence, bouncing ideas off each other and whatnot.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think this is one of the main reasons why I also think a lot of new albums sound not boring, but how can I say it? Organic, you say it. It's not. It's not organic. It's like it's like it's a little bit like plastic. It sounds like the computer has made it. And I think the second reason for this is the recording techniques nowadays, because every band uses the same programs. It seems like they use the same tools, the same effects, so a lot of albums sound alike, and that's not good, because it gets boring. It really is boring to listen to albums who sound the same like other albums. There's nothing new, there's nothing fresh, there's nothing organic in it, there's nothing thrash. I already said it. Yes, and that's I think the two main reasons why a lot of new stuff sounds not that good like in the older days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I spoke with Jensen from The Haunted, and so he also raised a very interesting point around the use of click tracks. And again, I know a lot of people that swear by it, think it's super useful. I can understand why people would want to use it, but he made the very interesting point that that when he stopped using a click track, it kind of allows him that little bit of breathing room, that little bit of space between between the notes. And then I was casting my mind back to something like Battles in the North. I mean, clearly not recorded with a click track, but it's the fact that those albums have those imperfections in that I think make them so endearing, and partly why I love them so much.
Yeah, you are totally right. Of course. I think I hate click track. I never use that because I want to have it natural. And I think to have a click track, of course, is better for the producer. So nowadays, how recording works. There's a lot of snipping. The producer takes the good part and puts it there where it was not played that well. And of course, then it sounds not natural at all. There's sometimes some parts are repeated from the computer, and that's not natural. That's not like a band in a recording room or a band on stage. And I think you can hear it. You can hear that there is a lack of spontaneous ideas, and I think you can really hear it. And it's for the ear, for everyone's ear, it's boring. And I think if you listen to a whole album.
It's like if you ask AI to create the perfect, like if you're a man, you ask AI, create me the perfect woman. It'll create the perfect woman based on every single machine characteristic it thinks, or any characteristic it's learned is what is most prized by men. But I guarantee you can take a natural woman. Let's use somebody current. You could take that woman that's been created by AI, have Sydney Sweeney stand next to her, and 9.8 out of 10 guys would go, she's the more attractive of the two.
Yeah. That's the reason why, for example, I don't like those professional porno movies. I prefer the homemade ones, because they're real. They're not made by professionals. They're real. This is natural. That's natural sex. So I'm of course also I'm also into natural music, and if there are some mistakes in it, if the timing is not that tight, I don't give a fuck. I love it.
Yeah. Is there anything that is new that you've heard that you go, yeah, these guys know what they're doing?
You mean a new band? A new band?
New bands, yeah. Or did you checked out new music after Infernal Overkill came out? That's it. I'm not buying any more albums after this.
Sometimes, only sometimes. No, I'm really interested in what is going on, but I honestly have to say most of the new stuff is really, really boring because on one side it was there before. There are a lot of bands who are just copying other bands. And I mean, what's the reason why you do Swedish death metal sound when you come from, I don't know, France or something like that? Why don't you create your own France death metal sound? I can't understand it. Why they have to copy the original sound. I prefer to listen to the original Dismember and Grave and Entombed album. It's too boring to listen to this copy stuff, it has no sense for me. And on the other hand, what I am missing most is good singers. Good singers which have an outstanding voice. It's missing. It's really missing nowadays. The last black metal band, for example, I was really impressed with. It's not new anymore. but it's the band MGLA from Poland.
Mgła. Yeah,
I think it's
Mgła,
the pronunciation. I don't know Polish, but they have a fucking great singer. Of course, the drummer is a genius as well, but this voice really catched me. That was the last time in the extreme metal when I was really impressed by a band. There are other heavy metal bands, for example. There's a very good young heavy metal band from Germany. I tell everybody, check them out. They're a really, really good band because the singer is good. He has a real outstanding voice. A little bit, he reminds me a little bit. I don't know if you remember in Solitude from Sweden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
And the band is called The Night Eternal. Check them out. Really good band. Fantastic guys as well.
They're signed to Van Records, I think. Let me double check that. I'm almost sure I'm thinking of the same band.
Or Metal Blade as well. I don't know.
So Moonlit Cross, their previous, or I think their first album, that came out on Van Records. That's why I recognized it. But you are correct; they are now signed to Metal Blade. As a matter of fact, Fatale, their second album, that was also out on Van Records. So I knew the name was familiar. I thought for a second there you were about to say Attic, who I saw, by the way, over the weekend, and I really enjoyed.
Yeah, cool guys. We met them very often. We played with them a lot of times. I must admit the singing is okay. Sometimes getting on my nerves,
Sometimes those
of course, I love King Diamond.
Those King Diamond inspirations are a little too obvious. Yeah.
Yes. I love King Diamond, of course, but he's over the top of King Diamond. It's too much sometimes.
Now, if you go back over, like we're going to fast forward onto Kill All Idols in a second, but if you kind of look at those, that run of albums that you put out, especially in the early 2000s, I'd say Hellfire's Dominion, fantastic. Tyrants of the Netherworld, fantastic. Divine Blasphemies, fantastic. The two albums that for me really stand out in your catalog, like if I had to pick favorites, Angel Whore I think is magnificent, and then Satan's Soldiers Syndicate is a fucking masterpiece. Do you have any favorites?
It's hanging behind me. This is really my favorite one, Tyrants of the Netherworld. It's the third album. Many fans prefer the second album, the Hellfire's Dominion album, because I think there are the two hymns of Disaster included. It's Metallized Blood, of course, and Teutonic Steel on Hellfire's Dominion. But I think this album is really perfect because the artwork is really iconic. The sound was fantastic, really underground, but great. And every song is cool. Every song is great, and I love this album most. Of course, it's always difficult. It's like you are a father and have 10 children. You, of course, like every children the same. But perhaps a little bit, this one is my favorite one.
That's your favorite son. So
Yes.
he's the one that gets to ride up front with dad in the car. So Kill All Idols, it is. It clearly sounds like Disaster, but there is definitely a different energy to it from Churches Without Saints. Tell me just a bit about the making of the album. Was there anything different in the way that you approached this? How did the record come together?
The songwriting was the same, but we put much more effort to really represent every element which Disaster is known for. We have some trademarks, and in the last 36 years we had a lot of different songs, and we wanted to present the people everything which we made in the last 36 years, and we have black metal on it, thrash metal, speed metal, normal heavy metal, we have death metal. We also have punk on the new record because we were big punk fans since the beginning. And there was also a little bit place for something new. For the first time ever on the song Ash Cloud Ritual, we have some war metal, war black metal sound, on the beginning and the end of the song, which we never had before. It was really an experience. Our drummer nearly died playing so fast.
You said Infernal's going to come and take over here in a second and just attack the drums like you were saying earlier.
I can only do the punk style, Ufta, ufta. Yeah, and also we are very proud of the song called Stellar Remnant. It's very untypical for us, some new rhythms, and we also managed to put something new on the album. So on the whole, we are very satisfied.
Is it important for you to challenge yourself in that way, still creatively? Like you like to try new things, and do things that kind of fits into the milieu of Disaster, but it's new for you.
Yes, of course. I hate the word progression, because many bands tried to progress and they wanted to do something new and something more, what can I say? They wanted to show their skills, and I think most of the bands, they failed and sucked with doing that because they betrayed their own old style and they betrayed their old fans, But of course, it's boring to repeat yourself every time. So in our boundaries, in our four walls of Disaster, we try, of course, to do something progressive, something new from time to time. And when it sounds good, when it fits into the whole concept of Disaster, we use it. Some other shit is not fitting into it, then I use it for my other band.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you. I mean, because you've got a couple of things that you work on outside of Disaster. You've got Infernal Fire, and you also have Moon Towers, which you've got the T-shirt on right now. What's happening with those bands?
Yeah, that was really the case. I always had some riffs left which didn't fit into Disaster, but they were too good to be thrown away. And so the project started with Moon Towers. I don't know if you remember the band called Metal Inquisitor from Germany, a great heavy metal band. And with the drummer, I always wanted to do a project, and we finally managed, I think 7 or 8 years ago, and we just jammed around. I used those unused riffs of Disaster, and he found some great rhythms, and that was the birth of Moon Towers. It's a normal heavy metal band, I would say. It's an epic heavy metal band. We have a very good singer, outstanding singer. It was ever my dream to have a band not only with shouts, with growling, the hard style, the extreme style, but I, of course, also love good singers like Ronnie James Dio or Bruce Dickinson and stuff like that. And I wanted to have a real singer. So I started Moon Towers, and we are going to release our second album this year. And check this out. Everybody who's into epic heavy metal will like it. Very good. And the other one...
I'm going to say, busy year for you.
Yeah, it's very busy. Well, it was very busy. It was very hard with 2 recordings. And Infernal Fire is only a fun project that was born when I was left alone in a rehearsal room. When the other guys didn't come to a rehearsal, I was drinking beer and I was thinking, I can do it for my own. I was playing drums, I was playing bass, I was playing guitar, and I tried to sing. My singing is terrible, but I recorded it and I gave it to a few friends, only one song. and one of the guys, he's running a fanzine called Hellpike Magazine, and he used to include a 7-inch single on every issue. And he asked me, "What about putting the song of you on the single of my new magazine?" I said, "Yeah, if you want it, let's do it." So I had to find a name, and I have to do a photo for the layout, and so Infernal Fire was born. It's not that serious, because it's very hard to rehearse for your own. The good thing is nobody tells you to change something. You can do whatever you want. That's good.
I'm about to say the good thing is, don't have to rely on anybody showing up for rehearsal.
Yes. Nobody drinks your beer. You have your beer for our own. That's the best thing.
Yeah. You guys are going to hit the road as well after Kill All Idols has come out. You're playing a couple of shows. I think I saw shows in Bulgaria, Serbia. What's all happening after the album comes out?
Yeah, well, we are not a professional band, so as usual, we only play some selected shows, some festivals. We don't go touring, the whole world. We all have our regular jobs, We don't need to play music to pay our bills, so it's just for fun. And so we play a couple of festivals. We are looking forward for the first time in Bulgaria. We return to Serbia, always a fucking great audience. We have playing there, I think, for 2 times already. And the guys in East Europe, they are so hot. You can compare those guys to the guys in South America, which are maniacs. They are really maniacs. It's always so cool to play in South America. We just played there in March. We returned to Brazil after a long time, and it was so fucking maniac there. And yes, we play hopefully in the United States in October.
About to say you're
still don't have.
You're on the lineup for Metal Threat as well, which is like, I think the whole entire metal world, at least the metal world that I want to be part of, we're all kind of looking at it and we're wondering, like, is this actually going to go ahead? Like, the lineup just seems too good to be true.
Yeah. I still can't believe it. The lineup is really
it's unreal.
As you said it. That's like a dream.
Yeah,
like a dream for every extreme metal fan, And we still don't have any visas, to come over. Hopefully this will happen soon, so everything is fixed. We don't have any flights booked already, so of course we hope that this will take place, because not only this festival, we also are going to play in New York. We have never played in New York City. It is a dream of me to see all the skyscrapers, which are known from the movies. That's cool. So hopefully this will happen.
Well, brother, I will keep my fingers crossed for you. I know we're at time, but I just want to say thank you so much. So good to talk to you, especially after enjoying Disaster's music for as long as I have. Congratulations on this new album. You guys are definitely not showing your age whatsoever, and I look forward to whatever it is you do next. I'll keep an eye out for that Moon Towers record as well.
Yeah, check it out. This will be cool as well. And thank you very much. It was a fucking great chat with you. I enjoyed it very much. I have to get a new beer now. Cheers to you all. Hope
Move on to the next one.
Yeah. Cheers to you all. I hope to meet you in front row, at Metal Threat festivals, and bang our heads to all the fantastic bands. Hail extreme underground metal.
Darkness, bring us full vibration. Temptation.
Towards Oblivion by Desaster, that is taken from their brand new album Kill All Idols. It's available on Metal Blade Records. It absolutely fucking rips. And I'll tell you what else ripped. Talking to Infernal. What a great guy. So enthusiastic, so fired up for what he does after so many years in the game. An absolute pleasure catching up with him. And I want to say thank you to him for his time. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did recording it. And like I mentioned at the top of the show, hopefully that is not the last time that he features on Into the Necrosphere. Either way, the Desaster Bandcamp link will be in the description to the podcast. As always, if the spirit moves you to do so, head over there, buy yourself some music, and when you do, you let the Desaster gang know who it was who sent you. Likewise, if you catch them at Metal Threat in a couple of weeks' time, know that I will be very jealous indeed. Not only have you seen Desaster, but also all of the other great bands featured at that festival. Right now, my friends, if you get all of your news from the Guardian newspaper, there's a very good chance that you eat crayons, wear irregular underwear, and of course, that you need to hit the bricks. Because this is my weekly news rant.
A roundabout for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
All right, my friends, solo news rant this week, and the first, it feels like to me, in quite a while. I actually, it's probably only no more than about 2 episodes, but who knows? Who's keeping track at this point? Either way, I feel like there's a lot to catch up on. You guys sent a bunch of questions over the weekend. I will get to answering those over the next hour or so, and I've got a fucking swirly of the week to dish out later on. That I believe in the short time that segment has been going, this is probably the most well-deserved lashing that I've handed out to an absolute fucking wastrel in the history of this podcast. First up, though, we're going to start off with some music, and we are on metalstorm.net as always. Runemagick have put out a new single called Word Unwoven. It says here, long-running Doomsters Runemagick are streaming a lyric video for Word Unwoven, the newest preview tune from their upcoming full-length Cycle of the Dying Sun, Dawn of Ashen Realms. That's due out for on October 24th. Let's listen. Love it. The band comment about the track, Weird Unwoven is the opening track of the upcoming album, a classic yet varied Runemagick piece, weaving heavy doom-laden riffs with some mid-tempo passages. The song dwells on fate and the inevitability of time, where runes lie in dust and threads are spun beyond the will of gods and mortals alike. Its lyrics echo a sense of shadows interlaced with silence, where broken vows and unspoken destinies linger in the eternal loom of word. I mean, you know, what can I say about that other than thanks? But either way, song is very cool. Sounds like a bit of an intersection between latter-day Celtic Frost, like monotheist era Celtic Frost, and early Paradise Lost, with maybe a little bit of Neurosis thrown in for good measure, particularly a Neurosis from, I would say, A Sun That Never Sets. Super interested to hear what the rest of this sounds like. This, of course, is the sequel to an album they brought out in 2023 called Beyond the Cenotaph of Mankind. Not one that I paid particular attention to, but I'm starting to think that I definitely need to change that. So I think this is going to get a thumbs up for me. Like it very much. And if you're a Runemagick fan, then let me know what Runemagick albums I need to check out if I want to get into this band a bit more than I am currently. Because honestly, they're a name that I've always been aware of, but it's just never been a band that I've spent a huge amount of time with. One band who I am familiar with, I do have some pretty strong thoughts on their music, which I may share after we've listened to a song. Avski launch a new single to promote their newly announced studio album, Fallesskab. Denmark's Avski now premiere the first advanced single, Not Miskinnen. Let's hear what it sounds like. Complete shit. Absolutely the kind of black metal that I fucking despise. It sounds like that quintessential sitting by the riverside sobbing your eyes out because the girl left you kind of fucking bullshit black metal that just in my view, I personally wish had no place in the scene. I mean, I know there's an audience for it. This band is quite popular for reasons I cannot fucking wrap my head around. But I hate it, and the song makes absolutely no difference to that. What I was curious about is I was always under the impression that Avski were the darling of the communists, but apparently not so. On this new single, they've got a symbol that has sparked some raging debate on Reddit forums. I'll read a couple of choice quotes for you. If they're from Eastern Europe, it may be a collar rat, which is a cultural symbol, but like other cultural symbols, some fascists do use it. Blah, blah, blah. It's not a cultural symbol. It was invented a few decades ago by a neo-Nazi pagan. And then some other dude says, considering how problematic AFSCII are, it's not surprising that they used it. So I don't know. I don't care. I just think the song fucking sucks. This band sucks. And it's been remarkable to me that they've actually been able to go on tour with bands like Panzerfaust. I mean, I think they were on tour with Ecclesiastes as well. Can you imagine this fucking crap having to either play, I mean, either before or after? Imagine having to follow Ecclesiastes if this is the garbage that you produce. Or imagine having to play before Panzerfaust when, you know, you got the fucking rabid hordes waiting for Panzerfaust to crush the stage, and then you're playing this fucking crybaby bullshit beforehand. Absolutely fucking dreadful. Dreadful shit. Okay, let's get on to some questions, and I have to start with one that I am probably 3 weeks overdue in answering. Margarita Costa asked me, tough question for you. You have to make a choice: Paradise Lost or Typo Negative. It's actually a slightly easier choice, although at first glance I did think to myself, well, that's a tough one. But really, when you start to think about it, Paradise Lost has 17 albums, of which, I mean, even at their worst, as I've said many times before, they're still a good band. They're still an 8 out of 10 quality band in my view. And I apply that to, if I would to talk about their worst albums, I mean, like what would be the ones that I not dislike, but that I like the least? Because I do like every single one of them. I would say the one that I like the least is probably the last album, Obsidian. And then that's probably followed by Believe in Nothing, and this will be heresy to some, but I'd say Lost Paradise as well. Those albums are not bad. They're not bad at all, as a matter of fact. But I mean, you then look at the rest of the catalog, and as much as I adore every single thing that Typo Negative ever did, I mean, Jesus Christ! Like, if the question is, what if you were forced to listen to one band for the rest of your life, would you listen to Typo Negative or Paradise Lost? Well, I could listen to Gothic, Shades of God, Icon, Draconian Times. Those albums alone are worth, would completely justify the decision to go with Paradise Lost. Then you have Host, which I love. You have 1 Second, which I think is great. Symbol of Life, which I think is criminally underrated. And then they went on another fucking tear in the 2000s, because Paradise Lost, In Requiem, Faith Divides Us, Death Unites Us, and Tragic Idol are fucking magnificent. So, on first glance, to me, a tough decision. But actually, when it comes right down to volume, Paradise Lost are the winners, hands down. Absolutely no question about it. Okay, next question. We've got Griff_in_2 asking, what albums this year would get into your 2024 top 30? That is a tougher question, and it's a tougher question because I haven't really had the chance to listen to anything side by side, compare and contrast. I spoke with the Sinister Minister a couple of weeks ago on this very news rant and mentioned that it feels to me like the 2025 school isn't quite as strong as the releases that came out in 2024. And I still stick by that. But what I would say, albums that will definitely have made it onto my 2024 top 30, Titan Blood from the Visceral Abyss. I mean, that album is a fucking masterpiece. Scour, Gold, also a masterpiece. Probably Abduction, Serpents, Trivax, definitely. I've already heard Tombs, and 100% they would have made the top 30. I'm really, really enjoying the new Proscription album, Desolate Divine. I think those would be it. One other one that would maybe be an outlier, just off the top of my head, Hexella, The Ancient Gaping Mouth. Hell's Headbangers put that out, I think, back in July. That is a fucking quality record, like just pure, hateful, spiteful, violent, kind of punky black metal, but it's just done in a way that it's got an edge to it that I just love. I can't get enough of. So yeah, I don't think that we've got as much in terms of sheer quantity in 2025 as we had in 2024. Now 2026, that looks to be shaping up to be a fucking insane year. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit later. But there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out in 2026 that I'm super excited about. I mean, Mayhem, top of that list. New Testament is coming out. There's a fair few other bands that are probably due albums next year. Marduk, I would assume, is going to put out something in 2026. And I'm still hoping for that Christmas surprise. Funeral Mist in December. That would make me exceptionally happy. Anyway, let's move on to some more music. Vile Apparition out of Australia have set October the 10th, 2025 as the official release date of their sophomore record, Malignity. The 10-piece death metal outing will be released through Misako Un Ojo Records and Dark Descent Records. Very big fan of Dark Descent Records and the stuff that they put out. So that plus the fact that Vile Apparition are from Australia, that instantly grabbed my attention. For a preview, give a spin to the first single entitled Emulsifying Flesh Press. I could very easily have let that run to the very end. That is top notch without a shadow of a doubt. Unlike Avsky, that actually has testosterone. It has sack, as J-Dog would say. It's aggressive. It is exceptionally well performed. There is no let up in the punishment, but there's a lot of variation. It's a dynamic song, which I like as well. There's a bit of groove, there's a bit of speed. I love that little bass interlude that they have in there. I love the bass sound and the production as a whole. These guys are fucking absolutely badass. I see they're based out of Melbourne, so just down the road from the master of the fretboard, Matt Wilcock from Werewolves. Feels to me like Vile Apparition and Werewolves need to take to the road, potentially in 2027, when I go and visit Australia. So, really fucking good stuff. These guys, by the way, just for reference, also have another record out. It's called Depravity Ordained. That came out in 2019. And then, of course, Malignity is going to be their second album, but definitely one that I'm going to have on the list. And if you were wondering why I was singing the praises of Dark Descent Records, they put out the Proscription album. So that's partly why I really like them. But I mean, generally speaking, they've put out some very, very cool stuff. There's a lot of growing, all kind of smaller underground labels that are growing and are starting to put out more and more good stuff, which is probably a nice segue into another question I was asked by our friends from the band Cult Burial. I don't know whether this is a hint, but they were asking me, would you want to run your own record label someday? Want and being able to is probably the distinction here. So yes, I actually would want to run my own record label, but I have as I've said before, and this isn't me crying the blues. I mean, I'm more inclined to want to cry the blues if you're watching this on YouTube about this fucking fly that is circling me. And it's not because I live in squalor. It is just the steep price you pay for living in the countryside. But back to the question. I just have a extremely busy day job, and I don't think that would allow right now for me to be able to do the podcast plus run a label plus do plus actually do my job, and of course perform the natural obligations with my wife. So whilst all of that is ongoing, there's going to be no record label, but would I love to do something like that maybe at some point in my life? Yeah, fucking for sure. And there's a lot of bands, including the bands that I feature week in and week out on the Unsanctioned Filth segment of the podcast, who I think could do really, really well. The other thing that I would say as well is I feel like, and we'll talk about Cradle of Filth a little later on, but I do feel like there's a gap in the metal market for somebody with proper business sense to treat and compensate artists fairly and correctly, but also actually to provide some of these people with some fucking common sense when it comes to business. Again, like I said, we'll talk about Cradle of Filth in a bit, but I think that's a very good case study. If you're in a band, you should be paying close attention to what's happened there, because I think there's right and wrong on both sides of the fence. Let's do one more question and then on to some more music. Evan _ Quell, he asks, when am I getting my damn shirt? So I do owe Evan a shirt, and he will get one at some point. I have taken down the Teespring store, as most of you have noticed who have wanted to buy stuff. I've had a few of you ask me, where you can buy T-shirts. I took down the Teespring store because I personally think that I just started to get too much feedback from people saying that you'd had problems getting your stuff delivered. Some people had T-shirts that were of sketchy quality, and Teespring is a really convenient and easy way to do merch. But at the same time, I'm not going to connect my good name to a fucking bunch of jabronis that, can't get their act together, or that take 10 weeks to send a fucking single T-shirt. So I've got a fucking killer design. If you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen me post it on my stories over the weekend. Killer design created for me by the great Cheyenne from Trivax. I want to get maybe one or two more. And then I'm going to make a decision as to whether I get the stuff printed myself. I've got the name of a person that can do it. Same person who did Cheyenne's Iblis Manifestations T-shirts. Or I might actually look into Amazon On Demand, because I've noticed that they've got Slayer doing business with them. Cannibal Corpse is doing business with them. I actually got my Eaten Back to Life T-shirt that you will have seen me wear a couple of times. I got that from Amazon On Demand, really to test the quality of the print and the quality of the shirt. And it's pretty damn good. So if they can provide a superior product, which they can deliver at pace to the Legion, then, I'm sure there'll be a couple of fucking hammer and sickle waving reprobates that go, I refuse to buy anything from Amazon. But, from my perspective, if it's an easy and a cheaper option to get it to you guys, and I know you're going to get a superior product, then for me, that makes perfect sense. So watch this space is really the way to answer that very quickly. There will be more merch. I just need to get the chance to actually decide what I'm going to do, how I want it to look. So if you have a No Wimps, No Mercy Into the Necrosphere shirt, hold on to it. Because if I ever go to prison, or I, end up in some sort of infamous documentary or something, then, it might be worth a few pennies. All right, on to some more music. I don't even want to attempt to pronounce this band's name, but I've already clicked on the link, so I'm committed now. Angerth. And fuck knows where they came up with that stupid name, but anyway. Polish black metal band Angerth have released a track premiere via the Black Metal Promotion YouTube channel. The track Main Tekel Fares is the first single from their upcoming album Zludnia, to be released by Gods of War Productions on October 10th, 2025. I'm going to play this song whilst I try and figure out how to pronounce that name properly, because, you know, if this ends up being a good song, you know, I don't want to do them dirty by not even being able to pronounce their name properly. So I'll leave this one with you whilst I unravel that mystery. Song is fucking superb. And so it makes me feel even worse about the fact that I've not been able to find anywhere that gives me any direction on how to pronounce it. So they stay Angus. Fucking thumbs down on the name, double thumbs up, if not a double top notch on the song. I love those clean vocal nuggets that fly in there. You know, just these little flourishes of clean singing that I think help elevate the song. That part that kicked in at around the 1 minute 32 mark, that bit of rolling groove that they throw in there, you know, very quintessentially Polish, but works exceptionally well in this track. Just the overall vibe of the song, it's angry, it's pissed off, it's everything that fucking garbage like Avsky is not. I love it. Shame about the band name. The song itself though is fucking absolutely superb. Poison the Well touring Europe next month. Bloedhaus Noord, new full-length due in November. They don't have a song yet, but it says here French metal entity Bloedhaus Noord is ready to return with their next full-length installment, the follow-up to 2023's Disharmonium Nahab. For some reason, it felt to me like that album was newer than it actually was. I didn't realize that it came out in 2023. The new one is entitled Ethereal Horizons, and it will be released through Deborah Morty Productions on November the 28th, 2025. The first single comes out on September the 5th. So next week on the News Rant, we will be hearing that, and I will, of course, be casting judgment upon it. I'm going to make a bold prediction, though, and I might be completely wrong, but I have a hunch that this new material is going to sound an awful lot like 777 Cosmosophy. That's my prediction. I've not heard anything. Zero to suggest to me that that's what it is. I could be completely wrong. They might be going back to the work that transforms God. But I just think I've got a hunch we're going to get something in that vein. I kind of feel like, you know, he tends to go through these phases where he'll kind of be, it's like he sort of riffs on a idea for, you know, 1, 2, maybe sometimes 3 albums, and then he moves on to the next one. But I think there's going to be something, just something that's going to be a little bit more atmospheric, I should say, sorry, differently atmospheric to the last couple of albums, because the last couple of albums were massively atmospheric. I mean, there's no taking away from that. But either way, looking forward to it. I mean, I always look forward to what he does, because whether it's, even when I don't like it as much as other releases, it's always interesting. That's for goddamn sure. One of Nine have announced their new album in October. Melodic black metal band One of Nine has announced its second album, Dawn of the Iron Shadow. That is set for release on October the 31st via Profound Law Records. The band has also released a lead single, Dreadful Leap, featuring Holder. Check it out below. They have a quote here about the new album too. We'll read that straight after we've listened to 2 minutes of this new single.
Under a dreadful sky.
I wasn't overly familiar with One of Nine before hearing this, and I've got to say, pretty impressed. It does have a bit of a hint of Principle of Evil Made Flesh era Cradle of Filth. Maybe not as bombastic is maybe the right word. Not as bombastic as Cradle of Filth, but there's definitely something to the melodies, the construction of the song, just how much they're layering on. That just, I don't know what it is. It just reminds me a little bit about that. Could be that it's because I got Cradle of Filth and all their dramas on the mind at the moment, and I'll talk about that very shortly. But as far as this song is concerned, I think the production is cool. I think the performance is cool. Again, I like my black metal to be a little bit more incendiary and a little bit more pissed off. But this works for me. Like those bits of keyboard, like the female singing. I think all of that helps add atmosphere. And I think overall this gets a thumbs up. The band was quoted about the new album as follows. It says here, "The page turns and so old sorceries fade. Turin, son of Hurin, hath struck dead." I'm not even going to bother reading that. But if you want to go read that fantasy malarkey, then please do so. I don't know. I'm probably in the minority on this, but I was never one to play Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid. I played plenty of video games and stuff like that, but board games, Dungeons and Dragons, and that sort of stuff. I didn't really read fantasy, so very often when bands start to talk about this sort of thing, I just switch off. It's of zero interest to me. Okay, now actually, I said I was going to talk about Cradle of Filth, so let's dive into that. And partly because a lot of you guys asked me about it. For anyone who's been sleeping under a fucking rock, Cradle of Filth have lost yet another 2 members. Those members being their keyboardist Zoe Fedorov, which sounds a lot like Federer. I thought for a second, is she the cousin of the tennis player? But no. Marek Ashok Smadar, their guitarist, was fired shortly thereafter. He's also Zoe's husband. Long story short, because there's plenty, I mean, you probably all know what's going on anyway, but there's plenty you can read about it. Long story short, they claimed that they had been underpaid, underloved, and then a bunch of other people started coming out of the woodwork as well, I think including Sarah Jezebel Diva. I mean, again, no surprise considering that they are employees, I believe, 39 and 40 to exit the band. So clearly, there is an issue working with Danny Filth. When there's one constant in a band and a revolving door of members, usually you can point to the reason as to why people can't seem to stay there for any significant period of time. Anyway, going back and forth on it did spark my curiosity on one thing, and that was, roughly speaking, what level of income Cradle of Filth generates. And without going through all the calculations with you, I did a bit of ChatGPT-5 analysis, and what it came up with was an estimate of between $3.8 million and $4.5 million in terms of total income generated. And it took into account everything from streaming through to average ticket prices and average capacity at their shows, festival appearances, publishing royalties, etc., etc. So, I mean, that number could be completely off, but based on the logic, I think it's there or thereabouts. I would love for anybody in the music industry to give me a view as to whether you think that's a ballpark figure or whether you think they make more or less. But in 2025, the estimate is they will generate between 3.8 and 4.5 million. I then asked ChatGPT to do a breakdown of what the net income would be after management fees have been paid, agents, crew, PR, everything that goes with, maintaining and funding a band. And then I said, if Danny Filth were to keep 50% of the net income for himself, how much could the band reasonably afford to pay a session musician? And the outcome of that was between $40,000 and $60,000 per year. With Danny Filth keeping roughly about $600,000 to $750,000 for himself. And then the band keeping about another, I think the number it gave me was another $600,000 to $700,000 aside for incidentals, effectively a rainy day fund. So by all measures, the amount of money that Zoe and Ashok were being paid seems on the low side. It seems a little bit stingy. The understanding as well, based on what they've said, and Danny doesn't seem to have denied this, that that is what they were paid for 7 years, no pay increase. He also admits in the post that he put up on Instagram that it was a garbage contract that they were offered when asked for, when they asked for a pay increase. He does have a bit of a wishy-washy, as the old folks would say, my mom would say, a wishy-washy response to, the fact that he says the contract was supposed to be, was supposed to spark a conversation. I don't fucking believe that. I mean, not for a fucking second. You don't send an employment contract to somebody and under the assumption that they're going to negotiate it. So I think that's not quite right. But why I said there's right and wrong on either side, for starters, Zoe in particular has been super vocal about this publicly. She points to things like that they can't make a living on that amount of money, et cetera, et cetera. Your cost of living in a normal employment situation is not the responsibility of your employer. So whether you live frivolously or whether you live frugally, It's of absolutely zero consequence to Danny and Cradle of Filth Inc. They offered you a certain amount of money. You signed the contract without anybody putting a gun to your head. How you then manage your finances after that is up to you. And he is under absolutely no obligation to give you more, to give you a pay increase because things have gotten more expensive. He doesn't have to do any of those things. And if you don't want to accept those terms, you can then exercise your free will and your free right to exit, to resign. I mean, there were a couple of things in that contract, because I read through it. One thing in particular that stood out to me, that if I were a business advisor, coming back to my point earlier, of one of these artists, I would tell them to redline that fucking straight away. And that is that they can apparently sue you for liability up to $1 million if you were to do anything that effectively causes them to lose money. Such as resign without working your 90-day notice, et cetera, et cetera. So that I looked at that and I was like, fuck that shit. Because there's any number of reasons why, you might be in a position where they could use that against you, and it's just too big of a liability to accept. But overall, again, no one held a gun to their head. They signed that deal. If they weren't happy with the deal, they could do what they ended up doing, which was to leave. The other thing that Danny has pointed to has been that apparently there was drink involved, physical and verbal abuse, incidents in front of fans. And, again, you don't want that kind of unprofessionalism as a band. So from his perspective, maybe he sees it as a blessing in disguise. Like, we didn't want to we couldn't outright fire them for various reasons. Tour just kicked off, whatever justification there is. But maybe he's breathing a sigh of relief at the fact that, that they've all self-selected their way out. Yes, I know technically Ashok was fired, but, he again, stupidly goes and makes a public announcement that he's planning to resign anyway. So, but I mean, that's kind of the gist of it. I think it's, Alan Averill did a really good analysis of this on Agitators Anonymous. He said something that I would certainly echo, and that is that you don't air your dirty laundry. It's very distasteful. And I don't think you should do that, whether you're Danny Filth or whether you Zoe and Ashok. Keep that business to yourself. It'll be interesting to see if, who they get to replace them. Certainly, it seems like there's a bevy of wronged former employees of Cradle of Filth Inc. that, have come to the defense of Zoe and Ashok. What happens to them after this, who knows? But either way, it's certainly captured people's attention. That's for goddamn sure. Too bad I don't like Cradle of Filth's music, and generally I'm completely and utterly indifferent to the band. But I did find what was going on with all of this fucking palaver to be very interesting. So hence why I wanted to bring it up. Right, Mystic Circle post a new single featuring none other than Sarah Jezebel Diva, who we spoke about just a second ago. She's of course back with Covenant now, or The Covenant, whatever they're calling themselves. But it says here, Mystic Circle are debuting a brand new single, The Scarlet Queen of Harlots, featuring guest vocalist Sarah Jezebel Diva. The song is part of the band's upcoming studio album, Hexenbrand 1486, due out on October the 31st, 2025, through Reigning Phoenix Music. This is another one of those bands that I think if you're a fan of Cradle of Filth's style of black metal, Mystic Circle's almost certainly a band that you're familiar with and that you listen to. Again, playing in the same territory as One of Nine. And in that vein, I think doing a really good job. In the first 2 minutes of the song, maybe Sarah Jezebel Diva is slightly underused, but then again, I think if you overplayed that presence, I think it might hurt the song. I mean, again, overall, I like the production. I think that the vocals, there's something about the rhythm that sounds a little bit too familiar. Like I've heard it done too many times before. You know, it sounds it might be intentionally so. It sounds very early 90s black metal. Again, you know, these guys are they've been around for a while. So that probably shouldn't surprise me either. I like it. I would give it a thumbs up, not necessarily a top notch, but I am curious to hear what the rest of the album sounds like. It is not, once again, not my default style of black metal that I enjoy. It's not face-ripping, god-smashing black metal, but yeah, I do like it. And I'm glad to see that Sarah Jezebel Diva landed on her feet. Some of the clips that I've seen of the Covenant live, that looks pretty fucking cool. So seems like she's doing very well. And if she ever wanted to come on the podcast and chop it up about whatever comes to mind, she's always got an open invite. Right, one more question, and then straight into the swirly of the week, and the two are connected. So I'm going to start with a question. Yotaneg86 asks, "How would you describe the current metal scene?" I don't think that anyone who answers that question honestly could argue against the idea that we are currently in a period of exceptional abundance, and that is not just abundance of great new music coming out. And there are great new bands. There are a lot of old nostalgia acts putting out really serious tier one music. Some of the, not necessarily the best music of their careers, but certainly, very, very solid efforts. But in addition to the abundance of new material, we also have an abundance of just different things like festivals. I mean, back when I was banging, back in like 1995, you basically had Donington, you had Wacken, I think you had Eindhoven, and I speak under correction on this, but I think you potentially had Milwaukee Metal Fest, but that really was about it. I mean, now there are so many absolutely fantastic festivals that you can choose from if you're that way inclined, and whether you want to be, do something that is high-end luxury indoor, like Beyond the Gates, you've got that. If you want to be outside camping, you've got Bloodstock, you've got Wacken, you've got Summer Breeze, you've got a bunch of fucking cool stuff in America, you've got Metal Threat. So you've got festivals that are so good that the vast majority of them are now at a point where they're almost selling out before they've even announced a single band that's going to be featured. On top of that, you have an access to both music and merch that is absolutely unparalleled. I mean, there are so many great shops that you can buy t-shirts, vinyl, fucking anything and everything that you want from. So as a metal fan in 2025, you are catered to and then some. You've got more great things that are easily accessible than you've ever had before. Now, yes, there are pros and cons to that. I've often lamented with people that are on the podcast as guests that, there was a joy to discovery. There was a joy to, having to work hard and having to struggle to get the stuff that you wanted. But at the same time, would I swap 2025 with 1995? That's a very, very difficult question. And I'm not sure which way I would go. I would, again, gun to my head, say 2025 every day of the week. The fact that I'm able to start a podcast like this. I mean, even if you think about, an abundance of media, you had in the early days zines. If you wanted to listen to this kind of music and you wanted to get discussions about this kind of music, you basically had nothing. You had zines, you had Metal Maniacs, and you had Terrorizer, and that was fucking it. Now you've got a ton of great podcasts. Between Cheyenne and I, we speak to a very solid, reputable guest once a week each. So that's 2 episodes of I would hope a good podcast or a podcast that you enjoy, coming out for free every single week. for the vast majority of the year. There's a bunch of other really good podcasts as well. There's a bunch of great content producers on YouTube. You've got Router, you've got J-Dog. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of abundance, there's plenty of that. Now, I think that abundance it is at risk, and I think AI places it at risk. I think there comes a point where, there's the even though the pie is currently bigger and there's already so many more people feeding from that pie, that it is becoming harder for bands to maintain and do the things that they want to do. And it feels to me like it's going to get harder, not easier. And when AI comes in, my worry is that it becomes so commoditized that eventually it has a negative effect on the scene, and the scene starts to shrink. Again, I'm not going to dwell on that for too long. I can talk about it in more detail, on a future news rant. But I do think there's a big risk of the fact that this is like every age, this is a passing age, and maybe in 4 or 5 years' time, we'll think back to 2025, 2024, and we'll go, "Fuck, we didn't realize how good we had it." So that's basically the gist of my view on the metal scene. The thing that I dislike about the current metal scene is the fact that, particularly in certain subgenres, there is a contingent of people, because, like it or not, the metal audience is reflective of society, and society as a whole, in my view, the vast majority of average human beings are just not people that I get on with. They're not people whose company I enjoy. They're not people who I believe have any serious degree of intelligence, and they think with feeling over logic 10 out of 10 times. So if society and the metal community are reflective of each other, it shouldn't surprise anybody that there is a group of people within metal who believe that their music and the bands they listen to should be an extension of and a tool to validate their often misguided, ridiculous political beliefs, particularly those who think that Stalin had some pretty good ideas. And it is for those very people to whom I dedicate my swirly of the week. So for this installment of the Swirly of the Week, we turn to potentially one of the biggest loads of fucking garbage that gets published and called a newspaper in the UK, The Guardian, a newspaper that I would be ashamed to have lined my cat's litter tray, and one that, whether it's on finance, the economy, basically everything, they always seem to get it wrong. No different in this instance, but this time their ire is aimed at black metal. The headline here reads, and we're going to go through this article because it's important that you guys get a feel for it. This article headline is, "Angst-filled black metal music became my identity until I was persuaded to really listen to the lyrics." It's written by a fucking idiot named Anna Schnabel, and she starts, "My teenage self loved the misanthropic look and sound of these bands, but I was horrified when I learned what they represented. Like many bad teenage ideas, it began with a friend I admired a little too much. He was my best friend. He seemed sure of himself and possessed that type of musical taste that made everything else feel cringe. He moved from genre to genre with a sense of purpose. I, meanwhile, merely followed, diligently, even devoutly. When he discovered black metal, I followed him there too. Soon my bedroom began to resemble a mausoleum." I'm going to pause there because she basically admits at the start of this article that she is a fucking poser who is following the whims, the musical indulgences of another poser. Because like we've said many times before, there is no such thing as somebody that gets into metal and then, 10 years later they go, "Oh, I'm not into that anymore. I listen to indie now, or I listen to fucking folk now, or I listen to country music now." You're either into this fucking music for life, or you were never a fan of it to begin with. So she confirms herself, she outs herself to be an absolute fucking raving, smelly poser at the beginning of the article. But we continue. Soon my bedroom began to resemble a mausoleum. There were band posters featuring men made up to look like corpses, lowering into Nordic fog, and CDs with track lists that looked more like incantations than music. I began dressing the part, Black on black on black. I scoured forums for rare pressings and live bootlegs, and yet I didn't really know what I was listening to. Again, red flag immediately. How the fuck are you scouring forums and apparently buying rare bootlegs if you have no idea what you're listening to? The music itself was hypnotic, raw, relentless, thick with atmosphere. It sounded like alienation and angst and misanthropy, which to a teenager was more or less the point. It gave form to rebellion, but I didn't take a look behind the scenes. I just savored the vibes. At a certain point, my friend told me that Varg Vikernes, the man behind Norwegian music project Burzum, had killed his bandmate and served time for murder. What are we supposed to do with that? Or, as probably recreated how it actually sounded, what are we supposed to do with that? We wondered. We shrugged and said we'd shun his music and focus on others instead. Cool. Now, again, how the fuck are you scouring forums and you've been into this music for long enough that your bedroom is completely unrecognizable, your fashion sense is black on black on black, and you only, after several months or potentially years, don't know what she's talking about here, you only discover that Varg Vikernes committed murder then, and that he served time in prison? I mean, unless the fucking cave in which this woman was living didn't have access to the internet, there is no fucking way that you can be into black metal, go onto any single forum and not know what Burzum did. And by the way, she also then just leaves off the fact that his actions and a lot of the things that he said was roundly renounced by the vast majority of the scene and the vast majority of his peers. But again, why bother with facts when you can come up with fucking self-congratulating moral grandstanding? She continues, then my cousin called. He's 11 years older than me. He taught me how to play chess. So, of course, he has to be really smart. He picked books for me to read, was generally level-headed. I'd mentioned some of the bands I was into during a visit. He done what I hadn't. He looked them up, translated lyrics, read interviews, traced connections. What he found made my stomach churn. And this is potentially one of the most ridiculous parts of this article, because she jumps straight from I got into black metal to this. A number of these bands, it turned out, weren't just provocateurs with a flair for the macabre. They trafficked in something darker, coded fascist imagery, explicit Nazi sympathies, anti-Semitic allusions. Some had links to actual hate groups. Others sang odes to racial purity in archaic languages or quoted far-right ideologies behind layers of rune fonts. Graveland and Nocturnal Mortem, bands I had once prized for their atmosphere, were now impossible to listen to in the same way. Graveland's founder, Rob Darkin, often expressed white nationalist views, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we all know what Rob Darkin is about. I don't give a fuck whether you listen to Graveland or Nocturnal Mortem or whether you hate them. But to me, the most insane thing is to go from I got into the music, I was scouring forums, shock horror, I found out about Varg Vikernes, and then all of a sudden it's from there to Graveland and Nocturnal Mortem. And oh, by the way, the entire music genre is thus impugned. NSBM, if you did a calculation of how many bands in the black metal scene are actually MSBM, I would say at most 3%, maybe 5%. And then you then look at it and go, okay, but what about sketchy ideas, sketchy beliefs, or sketchy behavior in other genres of music? Pop music, rock music, hard rock, rap. Jesus Christ, has anyone watched the Tekashi 69 documentary? Has anyone watched the fucking P. Diddy documentary or the R. Kelly documentary? Are we impugning entire music genres because of what they did? No. But all of a sudden, yeah, because Graveland and Nocturnal Mortem said things that she disagrees with, all of a sudden the entire black metal scene is the worst and most abhorrent thing ever. Anyway, so she goes on about how her cousin didn't lecture her, and then says, after the conversation, I began to step back, and interestingly, so did my friend. The more we read, the more we realized that the fringe aesthetics were, in some cases, a smokescreen for deeply held hatred, the harder it became to hear the music without flinching. We stopped listening, not all at once, but steadily. I boxed up the CDs. We unfollowed the forums. Eventually, the friend and I drifted apart, though not because of the music, not directly. Life intervened. Boo fucking who. I still listen to loud music, techno, for instance. So she, again, there's Fash Wave. There's a bunch of fucking deeply misogynistic techno projects in the underground. But if the music has lyrics, I listen to them. I ask more questions. I know how easy it is to be seduced by the feeling of depth without understanding what lies at the bottom. She also talks here about how the ideology arrives through packaging and slips in sideways. Now, if you're of my age, you'll remember that during the Satanic Panic, one of the things that the conservative Christians loved to fucking bleat on about most was backward masking. Subconscious messages recorded in reverse, put into your favorite Judas Priest, Ozzy Osbourne, Wasp, Motley Crue songs, and how, even though you couldn't understand what you were hearing, when you go to sleep, your subconscious would decode them, and it would suddenly go from a garbled mess to Satan is Lord. That is exactly the same fucking stupid, idiotic thing that she's implying there. And by the way, somehow she was immune to it, because even though apparently she spent all her days listening to Graveland and Nocturnal Mortem, she herself did not become a Nazi. So I don't know how that is an immediate threat, an imminent threat to anybody else that's going to listen to them. But I mean, even though she's a fucking idiot, the worst is yet to come, because enter the fray the defenders of the faith. It's 3 letters written in response to Anna's fucking pathetic, useless excuse of an article. Dr. Jack Common, I mean, why they have to make mention of the fact that they're a doctor, fuck knows. I am an avid listener of heavy music, including the many subgenres of black metal. Anna Schnabel's reflections on her adolescence drew towards black metal's atmosphere and bleakness. Fucking yawn, yawn, yawn. Although metal may reflect and intensify the antagonisms of society more generally, fascism, racism, misogyny, and so on. So she's kind of saying it's generalization. Most metal bands do that. The scene has been and is being reclaimed by the oddballs and outcasts for whom heavy music is not just a sanctuary, but a place to envision a fairer and kinder world. What the fuck? UK black metal bands such as Dawn Raid and Underdark sing or scream about Marxism and class solidarity. Since when is black metal, or was black metal anybody's to claim in the first place, left or right? I mean, I don't like the idea of bands singing about Nazis. I don't like the idea in black metal of anybody singing about anything political. I certainly don't think it needs to be claimed by the left. And by the way, I feel very strongly about this. Dawn Raid and Underdark are not black metal bands. They're just not. Same with Agriculture. If you think that fucking bullshit is black metal, then you don't listen to the same black metal that I listen to. And it goes on and on. Joe Palmer, what a shame Anna Schnabel deserted black metal, a vast genre made up of bands from Azerbaijan to Kenya to Iceland to Peru, with hundreds in the UK alone. I'm not going to deny there's a notable presence of far-right projects within black metal, a fucking tiny amount. That really, you could listen to black metal every day of the week, 24 hours a day, and you would probably, unless you went out of your way to find those bands, you probably wouldn't come across them whatsoever. So she sobs about that and goes on about how wonderful it is that the fucking commies are taking over. Ian Forsyth, don't write off the whole genre any more than you would dismiss all punk because some punks had Nazi sympathies. He also goes, feminist black metal, Witch Club Satan. I don't agree that Witch Club Satan is black metal. And again, I don't need fucking feminism in black metal. What I need in black metal is exactly what drew me to it in the first place. Atmosphere, rebellion, provocation. Now, again, I don't personally give a fuck what any of these people listen to. I just also would say it is insane that anybody, why even bother trying to defend it? You're doing the same thing that I did as a fucking teenager, defending music from a bunch of religious fucking lunatics when the music didn't require defense, because their argument is so completely ridiculous and so completely pointless. So to Anna, to Jack Common, Dr. Jack Common, Joe Palmer, Ian Forsyth, you guys get a fucking turbo wedgie, a double dunk swirly. I'm taking your lunch money. I'm stealing your lunch money. I'm taking your fucking phones, throwing it in the bushes, taking your suitcases. I'm tipping it out over the third story of the school balcony. You can all go fuck yourself. You've been swirlied right here on Into the Necrosphere. All right, friends, I think we have time for one more song. Before I get to that, just a very quick thing that I want to share. If you are a close friend or family member of Jürgen Bartsch from the band Bethlehem, my sincerest condolences for your loss. Likewise, Nissa Carlin from Sacramentum, I happen to have a number of friends who were friends with him. Passed away under very tragic circumstances. He took his own life. Cheyenne did a really touching piece talking about suicide and effectively talking about suicide prevention at the beginning of last week's Iblis Manifestations, and I would just echo that. It is absolutely okay to reach out to somebody if you feel like you can't cope with things anymore. If you feel like you need if you feel like you need help, if you feel like you need somebody that can, if nothing else, just listen. Better that than do the unthinkable, which unfortunately, in this instance, was the path that he chose. You reach out to a friend, reach out to a family member. You can reach out to me if you want. I can't promise I'm going to be able to respond straight away, but for whatever I can do to help alleviate things, or at least make you feel a bit better, I'll certainly try my best. But it's very, very sad, and it's so cliche to say, but suicide is not the answer. I talk about this constantly, but focus on controlling the controllable. If you think about or let anything else distract you, you are always going to come unstuck. But just focusing on making the right decision, or making smart decisions every single day, consistently, day in and day out. It's like compounding interest. It just starts to work in your favor eventually. And it takes a while, but you will start to notice the difference. But yeah, again, my condolences. And I fucking hate that we have to talk about, somebody passing away now. For the last 3 weeks, it feels like every single week consistently we've had to talk about some sort of tragedy in the metal scene. It is just not right. So let's wrap up on a positive note. Death Doomers Hooded Menace are streaming the second single, Pale Masquerade, off their forthcoming long player, Lachrymose Monuments of Obscuration. That, of course, is going to be released on Season of Mist. I fucking loved the first single, so expecting big things from Pale Masquerade. Let's hear what it sounds like.
The dark, curses
Much like that first single, that is, I'm going to upgrade this one from top notch to beyond top notch. That is fucking excellent. We've got just a smattering of Paradise Lost in the basis to the song, but then they just go all over the place. There is, it sounds familiar and unique all at the same time, which is what I have always liked about Hooded Menace, but particularly this new material, it definitely strikes me as that, right from the off. As I said, that first single was fucking excellent. This one's even better. That chugging that they've added in with the guitar sounds superb. Great vocal performance. Just everything about this is fucking badass. And I am going to definitely try and get somebody from Hooded Menace on the podcast. I feel like 2025 wouldn't be complete with getting somebody from that band on the show. But speaking of Paradise Lost and speaking of Hooded Menace, a reminder, next week, my guest is Nick Holmes from Paradise Lost. I joked with him at the start of the conversation and said, I've had Greg on, I've had Aaron on, getting Nick on, it's like I'm collecting all the Pokemon, all the Paradise Lost Pokemon, even though I would never collect Pokemon because it's for fucking nerds. But you are definitely going to want to tune into that conversation. I do want to say a big thank you to Infernal from Disaster. What a guy. Make sure you check out that new Disaster album, Kill All Idols. Also want to say to you, the Legion, if you stuck around until the very end of the podcast, you have my love and respect. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I will be back next week. And in the meantime, whatever it is that you are doing and wherever it is that you are, my friends, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.